Welcome to Tipping Spears with Hannah Becker. Today's conversation promises to be an insightful one with a remarkable guest. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you're a regular listener, we're so glad you're here. Our goal is to bring you closer to the innovative leaders and thinkers shaping our future. And today, we're thrilled to welcome General Ed Cardon. General Cardon's service to our nation spans over 36 years, including work in Germany, Bosnia, Iraq, and the Republic of Korea. He has extensive experience establishing, leading, and transforming 14 very different organizations with diverse mission sets, such as operations, education, cyber, and innovation. He commanded 2nd Infantry Division of the Republic of Korea. He both transformed and scaled Army Cyber Command into the world-class cyber force, while simultaneously standing up new cyber organizations to meet the demands of this contested domain, including USCYBERCOM's task force, ARES, the Offensive Cyber Task Force against ISIS. His last assignment was the Director of Business Transformation for the Army, and he led the task force that helped create Army Futures Command, responsible for modernizing the U.S. Army. In 2021, he and his partners established Touchstone Futures to help companies grow, especially in the national security sector. General Cardon continues to focus on helping individuals and teams prioritize, tackle challenging issues, drawing upon extensive expertise spanning operations, modernization, academia, cybersecurity, and national security domains. Well, welcome to Tipping Spears.
Thanks, Hannah. It's great to be here today.
So can you start us off today by telling us where your story begins?
Well, the story began a long time ago in El Paso, Texas, which is where I was born, but I grew up in California as the oldest of 6 children, and my parents also had a number of foster children. My mom didn't work, obviously, with all those kids at that time frame, and so I grew up on a little farm, and well, first in the Silicon Valley area, and then we moved over to what's called Watsonville, California, great agriculture out of the United States.
Oh, that's fascinating. I know we've got the shared agriculture backgrounds. So what sparked your interest in serving in the U.S. military? How did that come about?
Well, first, since I grew up in the 60s and 70s as a young boy and then a teenager, is all of my uncles had served in the war.
Okay.
My dad served in the Army. The draft was still around when I was, a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
So there was almost like an expectation that everyone would serve at some point.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that I wanted to join the military at the time. I was actually, pursuing my idea of becoming an engineer. And so what I did is I applied to 2 places. I applied to the University of California, Berkeley, and I applied to West Point. Now people go, this is 1978, and you grew up in Santa Cruz, California, and you applied to Berkeley in the 70s and West Point? Yes, that is true, because Berkeley is a fantastic engineering school, still is. And but I'm the oldest of 6 kids. And I realized, hey, I could go to West Point, get a great education, do my 5 years in the Army, and then pursue the rest of my life. And so that's how I ended up at West Point. And the first time I saw West Point was the first day that we had to report in, called our day.
Oh, wow.
Never dreamed I'd serve 36 years in the Army at that time. Never.
That's fascinating. So was there a particular event or person that kind of served as a catalyst for your career, whether it was, convincing you to do more than the 5 years after West Point or anyone along that journey?
There's so many people that have invested their time and energy into Ed Cardon, and I'm grateful for them all, because you can learn from everyone, even the hard times. You can learn. And so, I think about my company commanders, especially Chuck King, who, taught me a lot about the importance of passion and intensity. Just wasn't used to that, but I took parts of that. General Bob Cohn, who's passed away, but he taught me so much about training and leader development.
Mhm.
that I still use to this day.
Mhm.
And then all things strategy, how to do things at the top level. I had the great fortune to work for General Eric Shinseki for 3 years on two different times. And all of those are just tremendous learning experiences. That doesn't negate all the other people in the middle who've
Mhm.
done this. And then I have a lot of outside mentors as well.
Mhm.
Ambassador Menard Nielsen, uh, who served as a political advisor to General Shinseki in Bosnia, taught me so much about the importance of words. I never really paid attention. In fact, one day, it's like, how do you know all this? She looked at me and said, I'm a diplomat. That's why. It's simple. It's these kind of crystal questions. So I feel very blessed. The reason I bring this up is, the military is not always an easy life, and you are always reevaluating, like, should I stay in? Should I get out? For example, in the 90s, people forget that the Army shed 250,000 soldiers, right? That was a tough time to be in the Army, especially when I was one of the ones that didn't go to Desert Storm.
Mhm.
And so now you're thinking, like, hey, compared to the experience of my peers,
Mhm.
am I at a disadvantage? I
Mhm.
obviously stayed the course, but I talked to a lot of people about what I should do.
Mhm.
And so I think it's actually healthy to examine why you're still serving and ask yourself if you're serving for the right reasons. And certainly not for the money. Money's helpful. I'm not saying that our troops shouldn't get pay raises or anything like that, but this isn't like working for a startup or
Mhm.
in the venture capital or private equity uh, or just regular capital markets. And since I've been out, I understand that area a lot better. That wasn't my focus at all when I was in the military.
Yeah, it's interesting. Every time I ask kind of that question, how folks stayed motivated on the career journey, everyone has people, that made the difference along the way as mentors. And it's so interesting to hear. And one thing is just kind of drove home to me doing the podcast is just that criticalness of having mentors, having folks that will provide you the feedback, the guidance, even just like a different perspective. Like you brought up a great example, like in the 90s when, the Army's going through a lot of change. And now we're in a time when defense is going through a lot of change too. And I love kind of the question that you present, examining why you're still in. I think that can be a real guiding force as folks navigate these changing environments.
Yeah, so one gentleman, I only met him once in my life.
Yeah.
His name was Leo Ruth. My dad introduced me to him. He was a big engineer architect in San Jose, California. Worked on cathedrals, that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow.
And I was thinking about getting out, and I had breakfast with him.
Mhm.
And at the end of that, he goes, Ed, I don't know why you're getting out. You have plenty of time to build your own company. You don't have to do it right now. Sounds like you're doing great in the Army. There's so much you can do in the Army, in the Corps of Engineers.
Mhm.
Why are you really getting out? Like, you can do this when you're 40. You don't have to do this now.
Mhm.
Like, never really thought about it that way. And
Yeah.
so, that's an example of, I think it's important when you're in the military to also maintain your outside links, is what I'm saying. And because I see too many of my friends, their biggest circle,
Mm.
obviously my biggest circle is the military, but I have a
Mhm.
lot of people outside. And I encourage that for, all of those that I've worked with and for and have worked for me.
Well, that's great advice. Having that expanded perspective of someone who's just not going to think, necessarily the same way you are about something can really open up your eyes and then provide that intel that you need to make decisions.
Absolutely.
So I know every journey, has its hurdles. Can you tell us what some of the biggest obstacles were that you faced in your career and kind of how you overcame them?
Yeah, I love the way you frame this question because every journey has ups and downs. Life's not a straight line. And so, I believe in hard work and opportunity. And so you do the best job you can in every job you have. Keep learning, strive to be better, and most importantly, don't take counsel of your fears. Don't think that, don't catastrophize, which is easy for us to do when something goes wrong. You're like, oh, I'm going to get fired over this. Because I think that's happened at every rank in the Army to me, catastrophizing.
Yeah.
And, but what I realize if you do the hard work, opportunity comes by all the time. And the question really is, are you ready for it? And so, for example, I'll use an example where I thought, my life was taking a bad turn. And so, as a young captain, we all go to the captain's career course. At the time, it was called the advanced course. And so, I'm there with all my peers, a lot of my friends from school and friends from the Army. And Linda and I go to Germany with our two young kids at the time. And I end up in a brigade headquarters, and all my friends are getting command. And I'm there 1 year, and I'm there 2 years. My friends are starting to leave, finishing their command, going to grad school. I still haven't even started. And I'm beginning to think that this isn't for me. I'm never going to get a command. And so little did I know that my brigade commander was actually working this assignment to get me into this particular job inside 3rd Armored Division. And that because I waited 2 years, had to wait 2 years, and I didn't wait, I had to wait 2 years. During that time, I think I became a much better officer, and as a result, a better commander because I had more experience, I had much more expertise, especially about the way things worked in Germany, and more preparation time for command. So the result of that was a very successful company command, which then resulted in a below the zone promotion to major. So here you think you're getting, hurt, life's throwing you a bad turn, and all of a sudden you get accelerated, and you couldn't predict any of that, right? And that has happened to me over and over and over. And so I just tell people, don't worry about the future, worry about now. And what are you doing to prepare yourself to be a better leader, better officer, better person, right? Because the opportunity will come by. And, an example of, I mean, it was both extremely, well, let me back up. So I took command of Engineer Brigade in Fallujah, Iraq in 2003, and I came home with the division in August of 2003. And this is when they decided they were going to reorganize the Army. And so the Chief of Staff of the Army, General Schoomaker at the time, comes down and he tells General Webster, our division commander, I want you to reorganize the division into 4 combat brigades. And Ed Cardon will command the 4th Brigade Combat Team. Now you can imagine I'm an engineer officer. I mean, I'm just sitting in this room, and part of me is like, it's like quite exciting. And at the same time, you're like, oh my gosh, we got to build this thing like super fast. Now, I love challenges like this. I love this. I mean, I love innovation because it's all chaotic, and I do a job of bringing order out of chaos. But you can imagine the journey of those 9 months of like, are we ever going to get there? Are we really going to be ready for Iraq? And the way it turned out was fantastic. And so I, and I didn't do it by myself. We created a great team. We had tons of outside support, very much of, just try to take in all chaos lies opportunity. In all hardship lies opportunity. Find the opportunity, move forward.
That's great advice. I fall in the trap. I'm a super catastrophizer if I'm not managing it. And it's the way you worded it, don't worry about the future, kind of worry about the present, the now, and then develop yourself. It's just that provides excellent framework. I think it's something that I have to be disciplined about. So
Yeah, well, the way I tell people the way to change your mindset, right,
Yeah.
is to take a pause.
Yeah.
Like, because actually the catastrophizing, you're letting your mind get control. Like,
Mhm.
just stop for a minute, right? And just realistically assess the situation, and you'll find it's not as normally as bad as you think.
Very true. Very true. So I know you commanded Army Cyber Command, which was a pretty new organization when you took command, and the cyber domain was really heating up. So lots of talk about it, hadn't been done before, lots that's got to be accomplished really quickly. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience, what it was like, kind of what you learned, stepping up to the plate and, taking command of Army Cyber?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start with commanding Second Infantry Division in Korea when General Odierno comes by, and at the end of our office call, he goes, "Oh, Ed, by the way, we'd like you to command Army Cyber." And I said, "I'm not a cyber person. We know that. We think you can learn it." And I asked him what he wanted. He said, "I wanted a world-class cyber force," or he wanted the world-class cyber force. I said, "Okay, after I take some leave, I want to take like 30 days, and I'm going to come back and tell you what that is, because I'm not sure what that is." And I traveled around the country finding the cyber experts and then what's
Yeah.
going on. And then when I got back to the organization, I realized, and General Odierno had told me this, there was a lot of internal friction inside the Army at the time.
Okay.
Because the Army actually developed its cyber force the hardest way, but in the end might have been the best way, which
Mhm.
is, the Air Force primarily, it was the communications side it grew out of, and the Navy grew out of the cryptological side or the intelligence side. And the Army said, "Oh, we're going to create it from scratch." And that created a lot of friction. I give a ton of credit to General Red Hernandez, who, in my words, I call it he saved the command, right? Because it was
Mhm.
under a lot of assault for a lot of reasons.
Mhm.
But I wrote this paper in my first 60 days of command, working pretty closely with all the stakeholders. And at the time, my deputy was Paul Nakasone,
Mhm.
future CyberCom commander director of NSA. And I said, these are the 6 decisions that I need. And Secretary McHugh and General Odierno, they delivered on them fast.
Mhm.
And so I had tremendous support from the top of the Army. But at the same time, I have little sayings, and one of them is, people don't resource things that aren't doing anything. So
Mhm.
operations brings attention to resources. So what are we doing?
Mhm.
Let's start doing some operations. I know we only have 2 teams, but two is not zero, right?
Yeah.
So what can we do with 2? And then we also have the mission to grow the teams and put that on a good path. Now, having had to grow that, lead the effort to grow the 4th Brigade Combat Team, I had a little experience about growing teams, and I have these little sayings. The Army will provide you the personnel and resources you need to accomplish your mission, but it may not be on your timeline. So as long as you have perspective. And then there were some, seminal events that happened. Like there was an opportunity to create the cyber branch, which
Mhm.
I had been discussing with General Odierno. Then the opportunity came to actually do it. I think that helped us so much because now all of a sudden, all those soldiers and civilians in the Army who wanted to work in cyber had a place to go, as opposed to being in cyber command, but you actually, that was not your basic branch or your military occupational specialty. So you couldn't stay there. You had to, because you had to go back to those to be promoted, but now you could stay in cyber the whole time. So very exciting time. Getting the new headquarters down at Fort Gordon, getting the Joint Force Headquarters cyber stood up with a great officer, General Karen Gibson, getting the team set up, getting the proponency back to the cyber school, getting the cyber school stood up. Yeah, just was just an exciting time. And very grateful for the opportunity to have been doing that.
So during your tenure at Army Cyber, y'all grew from 2 to 41 cyberspace teams. Can you tell us how you approached that? I mean, that's pretty extreme, rapid growth. Like, how did y'all pull that off?
Well, it started off a little different. It's like when I got there, it's like, okay, so here's the teams we have to grow, and here's the size of them. I'm like, huh, the team is 39 people. Why is it 39? Why is it not 36? Or maybe it should be 45. Like, how did they come up with this? So these decisions are already made. This is the teams. I'm like, okay, I can see this. I knew what this was. They made a decision to stand this up really fast, and all the underlying infrastructure by which, how do we assess them? How do we train them individually? How do we train collectively? How do we get this documented inside the Army? How do we get them equipped with the right kits, et cetera, et cetera? Wow, it was a journey. And plus, I'm not a cyber person, so I'm, on a very steep learning curve. In fact, I'll give you an example here of early on, one of my senior officers came into my office and said, "Sir, what book are you reading?" And I said, "Let me ask you, why are you asking me that question?" She goes, "You've been here 6 months. You know more than half of these people. Why? What are you doing?" I said, "Well, the book I happen to be reading right now is called Amazon Web Services for Dummies." Yeah, true story. Now you got to remember, this is 2013, 14. Amazon Web Services was this big,
Yeah.
right? But in there, they had this concept of elastic cloud computing, which no one, everybody knows what that is today. But back then, it was pretty new. And that morning, I was just asking the question. It's like, hey, I'm hearing about this thing like elastic cloud computing. Why don't we have this? I mean, this would be like perfect for our teams. And people were like, what's elastic cloud computing? And I'm thinking to myself, you all are cyber people and should know the answer to this question, right? So whenever that happens, I don't pass judgment. It's like, okay, we just have to do more leader development. And, I increased the leader development capacity. But I bring that up. So now back to the teams. Let's put things in place. Let's put them on mission. Let's see how they do, feed it back into the process. And then I basically told the command, it's one of the things I'm going to measure. I'm going to measure our growth to 41 teams. The most important part of all of this is getting the right leader for each team. But I'll give you examples, some of the problems. The intelligence community is already invested in the offensive cyber. So when you look at that, there was a 780th MI brigade, and there were subordinate battalions. So that's the offensive side. The defensive side, which had 20 teams, they had nothing. No brigade, no battalions. And it's like, we need to form some structure. Oh, so that's overhead. Now realize this is during sequestration. Life is hard, can't get spaces. I've made the argument. Okay, we just have to create a command and control node, even if it's 40 people. 40 is better than zero, right? And get the right leader. And here it is today. It's a full-blown brigade with, two cyber battalions. And that, I think, is when you think about it, all that was missing, right? But once you get the right leaders in place, clear guidance and direction, set up the training. We also set up an assessment model, which is you just don't get to be in charge. You have to be assessed to be in charge. And I've always been a believer in that. It's our chance, right? Whenever you create a new branch, I said, we can create our own culture. And one of the cultures here has to be assessment. You just don't get to be here. You have to be assessed into here. One more little kind of funny story. They were showing me this assessment test. I said, I don't like some of this because I have no idea what it means. And they looked right at me and said, that's because you're not a cyber person. Cyber person knows exactly what that means. I'm like, okay, we'll run a test on this. I want to see the results, right? Worked out okay. So it's again about putting the right people in charge, clear missions, clear purpose, clear focus, good culture. It was an exciting time.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear how y'all grew so rapidly, and there's the need for like upping capabilities this level, but also how you just infused accountability throughout this process. And I think that's something that folks, especially when it comes to technology, folks just want to kind of go hog wild, with growth and not think about that. And it's so interesting to hear how you really infused it in from, day one.
So I'm glad you brought that up, Hannah. So it's not technology for technology's sake,
Mhm.
right? And so actually General Odierno came down and was looking at our growth, 41 teams, and he asked me a very hard question. He goes, "So Ed, I got the teams. What are you doing for the Army?"
Yeah.
And I said, "I need 30 days. I'll come back to you." Um, and General Patricia Frost took the lead on this for me, and we created what was called tactical support to cyber and below. And we learned a lot. Like a lot of assumptions we had were wrong.
Yeah.
And but we adjusted, and now today there's a tactical battalion. I mean, we're still sorting out exactly what that looks like, but people know we need this. And you can also tell because most of the special operating forces have created these capabilities, right? And so I know we were on the right track. But again, you learn through operations. It's not technology for technology's sake. It's
Mhm.
technology in support of operations and support of operations for the United States. It's not, you know, that's, I think sometimes people forget that, right? Like,
Yeah.
so this is really neat. Yeah, but how does it fit into what we're doing?
So can you tell us about TFARES?
Oh, Task Force Ares. Yeah, that was at the time it was a top secret task force. It's been outed now. I've done a few podcasts on this.
Okay.
Um, but it was to me what made this, it was my chance to do something that had not really been done, which is to create a task force against a very specific mission that was designed like a task force, organized just for that mission,
Mm.
gets the right people for that mission. I learned all this in all the time I'd done in Iraq through innovations like the Baghdad Fusion Cell, what General McChrystal did with the different task forces that supported, uh, the special operations community at the time. I watched all this. And so I took all those goodness of those lessons and I
Mm.
applied them here. And, that model has been replicated. So the way it looks, this is how I describe it. On the top, it looks like a normal military organization, and it has to be that way so it can interface with other organizations. Otherwise, nobody knows how to interact with it.
Yeah.
Underneath it, it looks like a hacking organization.
Oh,
Looks
how cool.
nothing, looks nothing like a traditional military organization. It's built for the way that hackers operate, which is very much a team sport, not this
Mhm.
individual sitting in a closet somewhere or in the basement that people always talk about. It is a team sport. And so um, set it up so those teams can operate and have the centralization, decentralization, mostly decentralization with centralization for operations into developing tactics, techniques, and procedures to get after the mission. And if you think, okay, why was this task force stood up? So this was 2016, end of 2015, early parts of 2016. ISIS was recruiting Americans, right, to fight for them. I mean, the propaganda, the information operations, the debate magazine, the beheading videos, all of us remember this. You notice that all went away.
Mm.
Yeah, there was, a great team effort. It wasn't just Task Force Ares, but Ares was a big part of this. So it was a great organization. Still exists, by
Definitely.
the way. It belongs to Special Operations Command.
No, it's fascinating to hear how that came about, and y'all really on the front lines of this kind of whole new level of, you know, what's going on in the cyber domain as far as like information warfare and propaganda and targeting U.S. citizens. It's not soldiers that necessarily are the direct, targets, but U.S. citizens here in the States.
Yeah, it's cyber's an interesting domain. So if you not well understood, but becoming more understood. I mean, everybody knows now they have to lock down their phones and their account, but it is still it's going to be. I know we're going to talk more about artificial intelligence or AI in a little bit, but it is disrupting cyber like crazy.
So as director of the Army's Office of Business Transformation, he led the task force that resulted in the creation of Army Futures Command. So what was the driving need, behind that change?
Yeah, I used a tagline at the time. At that time, the Army had 20 what they call MCAP 1, or like the highest level programs like tanks, etc., failures to the cost of $50 billion. Now, some of that money was repurposed, right? But originally it was, set up for this. Not one. What makes us think that with the current system that's delivered 20 systems like this is going to be any better? And when I started drawing out, like we had, research and development in one organization, we had requirements in another organization, we had acquisition with the secretariat. I mean, I told both the secretary and the chief at the time, the problem is the way the system is organized right now, every decision that has any sort of disagreement has to come to you for resolution. And, I looked at some things like the requirements process at the time. It was taking 270 days from the time it got to the building. So, meaning the Pentagon. Well, you notice that this is still a problem. And that, we're on, I call it, I shouldn't say I call it. So the Training and Transformation Command's been stood up. I think it's great, right? Like if AFC was not delivering what it should have, and there's a lot of reasons behind that, then let's fix it. And so I'm excited. Now, when people say this, they always want to blame the acquisition corps. That actually is only a part of the problem, and I would say smaller part of the problem. The real problem is we really don't know what we want. It's actually the requirements problem. They often deliver exactly what we want. The problem is when they deliver exactly what we want. I use this example. Now that I'm out on the outside and they have a contract for something, everybody reads that contract, especially if it's a big one, everybody. I sit in rooms in the Pentagon when I was on active duty, and we go over these PowerPoint slides, and we would agree on these requirements, but nobody ever reads the contract by which the requirements will put in. And you realize when you read the contract, it doesn't match the conversation in the room. But that's what industry is going to build. And so as it goes down the road, everybody thinks it's good, and get to the end, it's like, this isn't what we wanted. Yeah, because there was not enough user interface, user feedback. People aren't vested the way they should be, et cetera. So change the system, and that's what we try to do. It was a very exciting time for me. Very hard, but it resulted in the changes of the Army's major commands in the last time that been done in 1973. And so it was extremely difficult. And, you can tell by the fact that we're going through phase 2 of this, that it wasn't as successful as people hoped.
So I know, leading innovation in a bureaucratic organization such as the U.S. military isn't easy. It can be very, very difficult. I know change can be difficult in lots of settings. However, you add that level of operation to it. That's a whole new league of change, resistance, and or just general difficultness in driving innovation. Do you have any advice for, leading innovation in that kind of operating environment?
Yeah. So I normally describe it in you have to have four things.
Mhm.
And often people don't in addition to the first thing you have to have is a the word that they would use is requirement. I try to change the word requirement into we need this capability,
Like that.
right? As
Yeah.
opposed to requirement, because requirement conjures up all these images.
Mhm.
So, but you need a capability that the force needs
Mhm.
or conceptually may need.
Mhm.
Like, and I can talk more about that in a minute about one of the shortfalls. Then the next piece is you have to have a way to buy it.
Mhm.
So that's the acquisition side, right? Then you have to have a contract by which we're going to buy this. Now, if you think about this, every one of these has had lots of congressional involvement. They've all tried to fix this with little pieces, and I'm talking about a holistic piece of it. And then the final piece is you have to have money, right? So if there's no money, if you have a contract and there's no money, then nothing's going to be built. So all four of these things have to work to bring to keep innovation out of the valley of death. And so if you don't understand those four things and understand how that moves through the department, then it's going to be a lot harder than it should be.
Mhm.
It's also normally not fast. I tell people stuff not fast because there's a lot of regulation. A lot of regulation is created when something goes wrong. And then
Mhm.
people think if we write a regulation, that'll stop it from going wrong, not accounting for human behavior.
Yeah.
What that does, it just adds layers of process. It's not going away in the near term. So stop complaining about it and figure out how to work through it. And 'cause a
Mhm.
lot of this stuff can be waived, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
So so if you want to work in innovation, you got to have persistence, you got to have belief, you got to have passion, you got to interface with the users, keep them involved. You need visionaries that can see out there. I mean, I use drones as like right now, counter UAS, counter unmanned aerial systems is a huge topic, right?
Mhm.
But we started using drones in operations in the late 90s. It was only when someone dropped a grenade in one of our bases in 2015
Yeah.
that we recognized, oh my gosh, we need some defenses against this. Yet we've been using this capability for over 15 years and
Mhm.
didn't develop any defenses.
Mhm.
And when we were doing this at the same time, I was thinking, it's not going to be long before people start doing something like this to us.
Yeah.
That's coming.
Yeah.
And so what do we do? And so this is an example of, I often talk about in the innovation world, you get these raging debates, what leads? And the answer is, well, maybe both do at times.
Mhm.
You have innovative technology, and then you have to have the concepts by which that technology is employed. And there's plenty of examples of both sides. Technology that doesn't go anywhere because they can't get it into an operational concept, or concepts that never have the technology to deliver on the promise. And so uh, it's an environment that's ripe
Mhm.
for uh, well, artificial intelligence one, but also for me, like this is human invention, right? Because the people that sometimes talk about like the technology without a concept, I use the example of the iPhone.
Mhm.
When Steve Jobs stood up on that stage in 2007, no one dreamed that 3.5 billion people will be carrying these things 20 years later, or not even 20 years, right? Like, think about how that transformed the world,
Mhm.
right? And so it's that's what I love about innovation. I'll just leave it there. I get very excited about this, as you can tell.
Yeah, well, the iPhone went from kind of a luxury item. I remember when they first came out, I found them a nuisance. It was like, why would you want to be available, all the time? Um, but now it's an expectation, right? For us to be able to be accessible in so many capacities. So I think that's a great example of kind of how innovation can really storm society in ways that we weren't necessarily tracking.
Right. So it's a good, I mean, and there's I think it remains to be seen, but artificial intelligence could be as disruptive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So after retiring from the military, you co-founded a firm, Touchstone Futures. Can you tell us about, what y'all do, your current role there, and who y'all support?
Yeah, it's so I'm the co-CEO, co-founder, started this with my colleague Ken Rector and another partner who's left. And we recently, brought on General retired Bob Ashley, who's been fantastic as my wingman at the CEO level. Um, it's a strategic consulting firm, but I wanted a firm that was create a firm that's a little bit different. And so first, uh, we're into long-term relationships with purpose,
Mhm.
preferably purpose in the supports national security in the widest sense. Like it doesn't have to be limited to the Army or the Navy, but just
Yeah.
broadly national security space. We don't have any time cards. We operate off outcomes. We don't have a brick and mortar. We operate distributed. Uh, we operate so we all help each other. So we work really hard with our clients on developing what we call a statement of work. What would you like done? Then we assign a senior advisor and senior uh, our principal and a senior advisor to work with them, but you have access to the entire firm and they orchestrate it. And then we help our company's clients grow. And I'm not in like I have these little red flags. Like a red flag is I need a quick win. You're not getting a quick win in the government, right? That's just a red flag. So it doesn't mean we won't work with them. It means that we have some education to do on how this works,
Mhm.
right? And so I think it's been fantastic. We've never borrowed a dime, and we've been growing methodically ever since we started. And we're 5 years in, and I think that's for a little company, 5 years is pretty good nowadays. People go like, "You made it. You're one of the few that made it." Um, but we really I enjoy it the most when our clients succeed. I mean, that's just fantastic. And I think you met some of my colleagues already.
Yeah.
See how much we enjoy working with each other. I happen to know most of them, so that also helps, right? And it gives us a level of trust that it may not be in a normal firm,
Yeah.
but we have people that I did not know at all, right? So
Mhm.
it's when you find talent, you got to bring it on your team.
Mhm. It was so refreshing when I first met some of your colleagues with Touchstone Futures. The thing that stood out to me was, they're different. This is a different operation than what I typically encounter in the defense space inside the Beltway.
Well, I appreciate that. That's exactly what we want to be. And we just really want to work hard to have the right clients that we can help grow. It has to work for both. And we're very, very, have very strong ethical underpinning
Yeah.
as well, right? And so, we do what we say. And if we can't, we will tell you that we can't do it.
Mhm.
We're not going to sit here and string you along. I mean, this is all about most of us come from a operational military background, and you know, we know that mission accomplishment
Right.
is what's most important.
So now that you advise, companies working with the defense intelligence community, what do you think industry often misunderstands about supporting national defense?
Yeah, that's a little bit of a tough one because it's pretty broad. I mean, it depends.
Mm.
So a lot of newer companies are afraid of it,
Yeah,
right?
I can see that.
And so they don't know how to navigate it. Some of them they don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
It's such a big,
Mhm.
and then it moves around all the time. That's the other problem. What may work this time may not be what it is 2 years from now, right? And then they keep hearing about all these cuts. And so, as I tell most C-suite executives that want to work in national defense, is it's a longer process.
Mhm.
It can be done.
Mhm.
right? If you have a technology, the country needs you. You just got to be willing to go through the process.
Mhm.
What we always recommend are little pilots up front where
Yeah.
possible, but pilots designed in a way that they'll scale, that they don't drop off the cliff, right? And so I said, nothing used to aggravate me more than when uh, somebody comes in and says, we need to understand your priorities. When I've been out at conferences and everywhere else explaining this for months, right? All you got to do is pull up one YouTube and I lay them out what they are, right? And it
Mhm.
just shows you like you didn't do your homework.
Mhm.
You would never go to a PE, a private equity firm like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Do your homework and then come in and say, we think these are your priorities. We think this is what you want. Here's how we can help you and get some excitement. Once you get that, and they're like, oh, they might actually have something. Now you got the interest of the government, and now you can start the journey. But if you don't have that, I just want to work with the government. Well, what do you want to do? Right. So it's a two-way street, right? But you have to invest in the government. There's a lot of regulations and stuff. The current administration is trying to do a lot to tear this down, make it easier.
Mhm.
Um, I think they'll have some success,
Mhm.
but it's still not going to be easy,
Yeah.
right? So, you got to be willing to put the work in, but it can be extremely rewarding, not just rewarding financially, but rewarding from sense of purpose and, supporting the United States.
Yeah, that's a great description of kind of the misconceptions about, supporting the government. I started in government contracting. I guess it's been 10 years now. Didn't know anything about it. So I was so naive that I attended my first on-base industry day. And I was just like, I remember driving on base thinking, okay, I'm going to meet some buyers, pitch my stuff, and I'll just leave with a contract.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big frustration. Although, I think it's important, that these are like the little rules. Like today, industry rule days are very important because it shows interest, but it also shows fairness. So go to the industry day so you make it easy for the government to meet with you, so it doesn't look like favoritism. Stuff like that. Just little tricks of the trade.
Yeah. Well, it's great to know that Touchstone Futures is out there available to support firms that have, quality services and products and just maybe not that awareness of how to get to the government buyer.
Yeah, we've had some great success. It's it's always good when you can. It's good for the company, of course, because they've won their contract.
Yeah.
But I like it when not only they win their contract, but I know the government's getting a great company
Yeah.
and a great capability.
Yeah. So you've seen cyber evolve from niche capability to strategic domain. How do you view the current state of US cyber readiness and what capabilities do you think we need to prioritize? There's lots of new tech out there, but what do you think is kind of most important?
So everybody always tips to the offense right away. Oh, it's easy for them. They only have to be right once. The defenders have to be right all the time. Okay, offense is really hard,
Mhm.
right? And so stop making them into 10-foot giants. They are quite they can be quite powerful. I'm not mitigating the threat, but stop using it as this kind of excuse like, well, it's just going to happen. The way I start is first off, there's only two types of people, those that haven't been hacked and those that will be hacked, right?
Mhm.
So just realize it's going to happen. And then I always use what I call the three R's, right? Make yourself hard. That's resilience.
Mhm.
Things that are really important have redundancy. And how would you regenerate it, right? So if you take your phone, have cybersecurity protections on it,
Mhm.
right? Stuff that's really important. Okay, write your password down and lock it up in a safe somewhere,
Mhm.
right? And regenerate it. Well, have a backup in the cloud so you can wipe your phone and restart it and be ready to go. Now, if you apply that to all everything that has bits, that's the start of an approach. So the other thing I talk a lot about is view it like an operation, not like compliance,
Mhm.
right? So it is competitive space. Offense, attackers, they're always trying to get in. Defenders are always trying to get out. Because it's software, there's always going to be glitches. It's your ability to see it first and then to act on it. So now, where are we strategically? I think uh, it's very clear that there's four um, advanced persistent threats out there: China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. And they all have their own special domains that they work in, right? It's not getting better. So, I think we have a lot more work to do. That doesn't mean we don't have great capabilities.
Mhm.
It just means that it's not getting better. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It's, uh, confusion over who can do what. You know, uh, People think the Department of Defense can do all kinds of stuff when in reality, that's not true. It's,
Mhm.
things inside the United States actually is the purview of the FBI.
Mhm.
But that's a criminal thing. So if it's not criminal, what is that? I mean,
Mhm.
there's a, we could get into an entire podcast on law here, which I got
Yeah.
exposed to. But the bottom line is I go back to, just be, have cyber hygiene, like do the
Mhm.
smart thing, right?
Mhm.
And so obviously I've been scanned or whatever many times, right? But like I don't answer text for people I don't know, right? I mean, try not to click on things, put
Mhm.
all the protections on, update right away, right? Every update that goes out, the hackers are tearing it apart to find the
Yeah.
vulnerability. So it's all that type of stuff that could be done. So um, with a partner of mine, Charlie Harry, he and I are writing a book on how to maybe improve the implementation of cyber at the strategic level. So I'll let
Yeah.
you know. I'll let you know when we're done here. We're about halfway through. It's been a, it has been I would say a labor of love, but it's been a labor of hardness right now. And
Yeah.
but I feel much, much better every day about what this is going to be able to accomplishment. And I think the basic premise is we need better operational art on how to use cyber.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
we lay out all the ways to do that.
Well, the book sounds super exciting.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. And I appreciate you emphasizing kind of cyber hygiene because I think folks, when it comes to tech, a lot of people go into like magical thinking mode, like, yeah, there's cyber threats, but we're going to invent this new technology that just, hardens all attack surfaces and we're not going to have to worry about it. And you really just emphasize or kind of bring to light, we're missing a lot of foundational things at all levels, strategically down to even individually. And I think that's a conversation that especially in our industry, we couldn't have too many times, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's something that has to be, in the military, we do a lot of things. You just do things by habit.
Yeah.
It's got to be habit, and also just awareness. Like this doesn't look like it's acting correctly. That's
Yeah.
all you got to say, right? That's all we need. We need the anomaly.
Yeah.
It's once you have it, we're on them.
Yeah. So let's talk about AI. So how do you think AI is going to impact modern warfare, the world of defense?
Transformative. And I say it's going to be transformative because, I mean, we're not all the way there yet. We're at the beginning. And I divide this up into a couple of different ways: autonomy, automation, and AI. And by that, I'm mainly talking the reasoning models. So if you think about autonomy, you already see that with the drones.
Mm-hmm.
You see this in the Ukraine. Yesterday, undersea drone attacks a Russian submarine in port. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Operation Midnight Hammer, you can see, I mean, and every time I see things like this, I ask ourselves, how are we postured against something like this?
Mhm.
Right. And so that's the autonomy side.
Mhm.
That will only get better over time. And you're going to see this, you already have it commercially too, right? Self-driving cars, all kinds of autonomy. The next part is automation. This is the manufacturing revolution, right? Where basically everything's becoming automated, right?
Mhm.
And so that's going to change the way we can build things and process things and like-minded systems. And then finally, we have these reasoning AIs, which we all use. At this point, most people, I think, have experimented at least with the LLM. Yeah, they have downfalls, no question. Um, but they also have the upside. And people ask me, like, aren't you worried about all the bad things? Well, here's the problem with LLMs and this AI. It's all dual use.
Mhm.
It's how it's used.
Yeah.
Like you can't put guardrails on it in a way that to stop the bad things without impacting the good things. So I don't know the right way. I mean,
Mhm.
I've thought a lot about this.
Mhm.
I don't and also, I'm very well of human behavior from
Mhm.
combat zones forward, right? And there's always people that will hack something. I mean, and by the way, this is very American to like take things apart when you don't know what you're doing, right? I mean, this is classic, right? That's why I used to use this with like, don't let soldiers get too bored and they start taking stuff apart, right? And then we got to figure out how to put it back together. Um, so but yeah, so back to how it will impact, it's going to be transformative. Now, where it starts getting a little bit squirrely is as it enters the planning processes.
Mhm.
And so if you see AlphaGo, you
Mhm.
see the chess game, you see Libratus, the poker game. I mean, in every one of those cases, the machine did something that was shocking and won.
Yeah.
So how's that going to work? Right. And so, but it is iterative, right?
Mhm.
So I'm big into like massive uh, testing. Let's learn about it. Like, don't put our heads in the ground. Don't block it.
Mhm.
You block it, our adversaries are certainly not blocking it,
Yeah.
right? And so we don't want to be at a disadvantage because we're afraid of what it might do. We just have to start putting the controls in place that punish people for doing bad things with it, right?
Yeah.
This is everything from deep fakes and whatever. But right now, like a lot of cyber things, there's not too much of a penalty. But once those penalties start appearing, you're going to start seeing some different behaviors emerge.
Mhm. Yeah. No, that's a great description. I think the gut reaction of a lot of folks is here's a technology we don't understand. Let us just hit pause, sit it out until we can figure it all out, which was not realistic when we're talking about these types of technologies.
Yeah, so it's aggressive testing,
Mhm.
and I'm by testing, I'm talking not testing like in a lab, but
Mhm.
testing, with pilots at scale,
Mhm.
et cetera.
Mhm. So I've heard folks describe, the emergence of AI as being similar to kind of the early days of cyber, basically where capabilities are growing faster than we have doctrine, we have policy, or even laws in place, which you kind of brought up. Um, how do you think we can proceed with integrating AI responsibly across, defense operations? There's not time to, dissect every outcome that's possible with AI.
I'll, I'll tip maybe a hat to the Army, and I think the other services have similar efforts. I'm just not as familiar with them, but like transform and contact,
Mhm.
right? Like, let's pick a couple units, allow them to be fully enabled.
Mhm.
Let's see what happens,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And then if it's a good idea, then we can make it bigger.
Yeah.
But so, I think what General George has done here with the secretary, it's fantastic. And this is the way I would approach it, because you're going to find It's also going to raise up all the policy legal issues. It's going to raise up all the integration issues. It's going to raise up all the training and personnel issues. You know, like already people are like, we need different organizations, and these units are allowed to create a new organization to use the technology. That's not the way it was 4 years ago. So that's that's my recommendation.
No, that's very insightful. So what are your top concerns about national security today? I know that's a hot topic. Everyone's got, thoughts, but what worries you the most?
Well, for a while it was our recruiting numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, the services are made up of people. We want to have the best people we can in the service. And when people aren't joining, that's a problem. It's a serious problem. So that's probably the first piece is, can we have to be able to sustain the armed forces. And then the other part is for me, it's like recognizing you live in a global system, right? And so it's this example I use in cyber. So this will give you, this is a fairly serious problem. So we're eliminating Huawei from all of our networks and everything, right? But the problem is the rest of the world operates off Huawei. So we actually need a bunch of Huawei products to be able to operate in other countries around the world with cyber, right? But people have a hard time understanding, like we don't live on an island.
Yeah.
Right? Well, we do live on a big island, right? But not really. But you know where I'm going. But it's not like because the world's connected different today, it's understanding this connectivity in ways that preserve our freedom of action. Maybe that's the way to say it. And this is everything in diplomacy and economics, military, all of it.
That's a great perspective and a good reminder too of the kind of the realities of the operating environment.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's operations, right? It's there's plenty of examples in the world where people that have inferior equipment but superior concepts win, right? So we don't want to have hubris, right? We want to that's why I think Ukraine has been very instructive for us. Now, there's a big problem with Ukraine because Ukraine doesn't have air superiority, which we tend to rely on a lot. So that would change things, but that doesn't negate the advances in drones and what it's doing to all of the other domains.
Well, General Cardon, do you have any final advice or parting thoughts for the audience today?
Well, I'm always bet on America person. So it's my advice is so for leaders out there, right? Just do the best you can every day, be ready for opportunity, and then pay it forward, right? There's always people that help you. Well, help people. Like I'm in a great position now to help people, and I spend more and more of my time doing that. I'm very excited about the future. I mean, we're all living in a period of technological revolution.
Yeah.
I have grandkids. I have no idea what their world's going to look like when they grow up. Sometimes it's scary, and I talk to my sons and daughters about this and their families. But at the same time, I said, yeah, but where's the opportunity? Like, what do we need to be doing to better prepare, these kids for the future? So I'm very optimistic about the future. And I think that, let's not catastrophize here. Let's move forward. We still live in a great, great country. I mean, think of, my mom came here after she was born in 1940, lived through the Nazi occupation, lived through the famines in Europe, came here when she was 8 years old.
Wow.
Right. And so still alive today.
Wow.
She, and every now and then I ask her, did you ever think you would live this long? And just think about how hard it was for her first 8 years of life. But those are years of hope, right? They came to America for hope. We're still a country of hope. So I appreciate the time today, Hannah. Thanks. I've enjoyed our conversation, but I'm very excited to be, you know, living in this time and taking advantage of the opportunities that are in front of us.
Well, I appreciate you so much coming on the podcast and sharing your insights, your experiences, and a perspective that provides hope and kind of helps us refocus on the opportunities. So I really appreciate that. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Tipping Spears with Hannah Becker. We hope this conversation has sparked new ideas and challenged the way you think about our future. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and we'll catch you next time with another exciting guest.